He was a teacher that was turned into a revolutionary, then outlasted two empires, and became the face of Vietnam's long fight for independence. Hey, I'm Matt Haskell. I'm a high school history teacher, and I'm taking you through Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, and we're up now with Ho Chi Minh. And when Billy Joel sings Ho Chi Minh, he's pointing to the Vietnamese leader who spent half a century just organizing for independence, first against France, and then against the United States and the fact that they were backing the south of Vietnam. He was born as Nguyen Sinh Cuong in 1890, and he was later known as Ho Chi Minh. He left Vietnam when he was young, and he traveled widely, and he served as a cook and a worker, and he became an activist in France and Britain, and then eventually the Soviet Union. World War I and then colonial politics convinced him that Vietnam needed self-rule, and he helped found the Indo-Chinese Communist Party and learned to fuse nationalism with communist organization, and that would be a mix that would define his movement. Now, during World War II, Ho Chi Minh formed the Viet Minh, which was an umbrella front against Japanese occupation and returning French authority. In September of 45, after Japan's surrender, he proclaimed the Democratic Republic of Vietnam in Hanoi's Ba Dinh Square, quoting language that was very reminiscent of the U.S. Declaration of Independence. Negotiations ultimately with France failed, and the result was the First Indochina War. The Viet Minh fought a guerrilla kind of warfare and a positional kind of struggle that eventually climaxed at Dien Bien Phu in 1954, which we talked about in an earlier episode. And that is where the French forces were soundly defeated. The Geneva Accords in 1954 temporarily divided Vietnam at the 17th parallel. Then you had national elections that were envisioned but never held. In the South, No Dinh Diem consolidated power with support from the United States. In the North, Ho Chi Minh's government pursued land reform, political control, and reconstruction. As the conflict, will resume, the Southern insurgents and Northern planners built what the United States later called the Viet Cong, and what Hanoi called the National Liberation Front. And by the early 1960s, the fight in the South escalated into a larger war that drew in hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops. Ho Chi Minh's image mattered as much as his policy. He cultivated a kind of simplicity, a khaki shirt, a stilt house, and meetings with peasants. To supporters, he symbolized sacrifice and patient organizing. To opponents, he represented a communist expansion that was directed from Hanoi and supported by China and the Soviet Union. Behind the image stood this network of cadres. You had, these clandestine routes that were known as the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and also a diplomatic balancing act between some quite powerful allies. Ho Chi Minh died in 1969 before North Vietnamese forces and the National Liberation Front captured Saigon in 1975, which unified the country as the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. His mausoleum and portrait still, anchor public squares while debates continue over the war's costs, and also authoritarian control, and also the decades of hardship that followed the war. When you tie it back to the song, his name signals a long arc, this anti-colonial organizing, a victory over France, a divided country, and a war that reshaped both Vietnam and the United States. And the reason why it matters, well, Ho Chi Minh matters because he shows how nationalism plus a degree of organization can outlast stronger armies and opponents. His story helps explain why Vietnam became the Cold War's defining ground war, and why ideas about independence and ideology and legitimacy ultimately collided there. If you enjoyed this particular episode, please do all the things like comment, follow, share, those things. It's super appreciated, I promise. And we're going to continue throwing more versions out, more episodes out. Because next up, we've went from birth control, Ho Chi Minh. Next up is Richard Nixon's back again. Thanks for watching.